welcome back to the channel. It's Tadpole MMA amateur MMA prediction video and verdict breakdown. This week we've got the Korean Zombie Jung versus Dan Ige in the main event, and a solid main card beneath them. We've got 6 fights on the verdict slate, so we've got plenty to get through. As for recapping last week, we went 3 wins, 3 losses on verdict on the breakdown video. 2 wins, 2 losses on underdog selections. We scraped through with a bronze badge. Did struggle with selecting methods correctly, hence not cracking in to the top 40%. In terms of the betting, we went 2 wins, 2 losses on our single plays, which were just the formula bets. We had 4 formula bets last week. The 2 that we won, cash Paul Craig at $3.50 and also cash Brandon Moreno at $3.02, which sent us up 1.52 units on the night. We were incredibly close to winning winning big. Easy to win via KO was the last leg of the multi, which would have seen us collect 18.16 units, which funnily enough would have brought us right back into the green on the year. 2021 has not been friendly to the Tadpole nor many other cappers out there, so that would have been an incredible effort to get back to even. Unfortunate and unlucky, some would say, but we push ahead. It's promising as we look to the future. As for my best call of the night, I'm going to say Paul Craig. I locked in a round 1 submission, which should have cashed. How the ref didn't stop that fight with Jamal Hill's arm just flopping around, God knows. But I also had that fight to not reach the 3rd round as the first leg of the multi at $2.20, which was a great play. It shortened by a mile come fight, and I think it ended up being $1.55. I should have hung my hat on a single play with that one. That would have been a great single play, so my bad. Worst call of the night, probably Nate Diaz. Even though I took him for the odds and that last minute of the last round somewhat validated his price, he really did just get beat for 24 minutes of that fight. Didn't look too good, didn't work volume, got leg kicked. Whenever he looked okay and got some boxing combos off, he would look to clinch, where he was just outmatched against Edwards, and it was strange decision making within the cage. But as for the formula, guys, I started actually implementing it around 3 months ago. The first UFC card that I ran the formula bets on was on the 21st of March. So this weekend, 19th of June, marks 3 months using it. So I thought I'd give you a little recap. As it currently stands, we're at a 3.09 unit profit, which isn't fantastic. It's only 1 unit a month, really. But winning is winning. So it's showing some good signs as I collect more and more data every weekend to really refine my prices and what odds on what fighters that I launch at. So, as for this week, from the 6 verdict fights, I've got 1 formula bet. So look out for that. We've got 5 other singles though, plus the multi at $19 odds. So plenty of betting. Let's go. Bottom of the verdict card, we've got Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. Matt Brown's 2.77 times and $2.35. Diego Lima 1.57 times and $1.57. Diego Lima, he's definitely more of a kicker than Matt Brown. He really worked Bilal Muhammad's legs in his last fight, but that is all he did in that fight. This guy is so susceptible to pressure. He much prefers distance. He hates it in the phone booth. He hates his back against the cage, and his lateral movement is not good. He does not evade those scenarios well. His striking is okay, but his accuracy is shithouse. I think Matt Brown has the tools to beat this guy, if I'm being perfectly honest. Matt Brown's skill set, I think his pressure's okay. His volume's not through the roof, not at all, but he typically does do enough. Like I aforementioned, or like I said at the top of this breakdown, he doesn't really kick. I don't love that, especially against Lima, who is going to be kicking way more. But he hits hard and he commits to his shots, and I think he can just get Lima backed up in this fight, which will somewhat nullify the kicking game of Diego. and just wilt him, look to clinch, fire those notorious elbows over the top, as he did when he knocked out Diego Sanchez. And I think he can do something similar here and actually sleep Lima. If it goes to the mat, I'm going to be concerned. Matt Brown's BJJ defense is poor. He's been subbed 10 times in his career. And, Lima is no elite grappler, but Matt Brown, he really has some brain fades on the canvas. So it's a worry. Nevertheless, I'll punt on the fact that this doesn't see the canvas until at least Diego Lima is kissing it goodnight. So Matt Brown, knockout, second round, 7.23 times. As for the second round play, Matt Brown, he's got 14 knockouts in his career, 8 of those in the middle frame. So that's actually kind of strange. Usually with guys with knockouts, they typically come early, from earlier in their career. So Matt Brown, for some reason, he likes that middle frame. And as for the knockout read, Diego Lima, he's been slept 4 times. It's his most common loss method. So I think Matt Brown can shut the lights out. Next fight along, Wellington Turman versus Bruno Silva. Wellington Turman, 1.61 times the verdict favourite, but the bookie underdog, $2.20. $2.20. Bruno Silva, 2.65 times on verdict, but $1.65. This is an odd little scrap. I do not rate Wellington Turman very highly. He got slept in his last fight against Andrew Sanchez. Wellington Turman, his striking, it's basic. I don't like his hand speed. His footwork is sloppy. His defense makes me genuinely feel ill. It's that bad. He does not return his hands to his chin. He leads with his head. He leaves it in the pocket for an eternity. And Bruno Silva, this guy, he can strike. 19 pro wins, 16 via knockout. He hits hard as fuck. And he is really unorthodox. He fights like Michel Pereira a little bit. Probably less explosive. Hard to match Michel Pereira in the explosiveness department. But he's very loose, He loves having his hands down. He punches from the hips. And then he does strange shit. He spins, he launches into flying knees. Some of his knees to the body are disgusting. Absolutely brutal. And his record, it's legit, This is his UFC debut, but he has faced some serious competition, some well-ranked fighters, some fighters with impressive resumes themselves, especially his last 2 fights in M1. He hasn't had an MMA fight in almost 3 years, though. That's a concern. And another concern, his last 2 fights in M1, he won them, but he was a massive underdog in both fights. He was $6.50 and $5.75. And now in his UFC debut, 3 years later, without seeing the ring, he is priced at $1.65. I get that Wellington Turman ain't all that, but that is a little obscure. And, Wellington Turman, he has the one skill that seems to be Bruno Silva's kryptonite, being a submission game. Bruno Silva, 5 of his 6 losses coming by way of submission. And for all of Wellington's shortcomings on the feet, his submission game is actually okay. He's got strong chokes. He loves the chokes, guillotines and rear nakeds. And he is a big, strong, young guy. He's 25 years old. He's got capable wrestling, explosive double legs, very, very powerful. He's got judo throws as well. And once on top, he is dominant on top. He's a heavy presence, which makes this so tough. It's a tale of 2 stories, striker versus grappler. And there is every chance that Bruno Silva comes out and knocks Turman out in the first round. But there's also a very high chance that Turman comes out, gets a takedown, and submits this boy. And looking at those 2 options, from a value perspective, I am a value punter. The Turman submission is 5 times the multiplier of that of the Silva KO. So give me a Wellington Turman submission in round 1 at 31.01 times. As for the round, 6 of Wellington's 7 pro subs have come in the first frame, and 4 of those 5 submission losses on Bruno Silva's side also in round 1. So the round play seems on. The unders seem on. I'll be betting the under. Watch out for that one at the end of the video. But yeah, could go either way. The value says one way. Julian Rosa versus Seungwoo Choi. Julian, 1.78 times, the verdict favourite. But again, the bookie underdog, $2.10. Seungwoo Choi, 2.28 times on verdict, but $1.72 at the bookies. This is tough to call. Aside from the main event, this is the toughest on the card. Julian Rosa, I am not his biggest fan, but his last 2 fights did impress me. You know, he's a pretty scrappy fighter. He's not the best technician, but his finishing ability cannot be underestimated. He has now secured 22 finishes from 25 wins. 11 of those on the feet, 11 of those on the mat. You know, he is dangerous everywhere. He has some defensive shortcomings. You know, he keeps his hands low. It does aid his offense, similarly to Bruno Silva. You know, he shoots from the hips, punches from the hips. But he gets cracked as a result, and Seungwoo Choi is the better technical striker, in my opinion, and Choi has power, for sure. Both guys have decent volume. Rosa is more chaotic, but you know, I like Choi. He throws in combinations. He doesn't leave an exchange empty. He does make the most out of his entries. Both guys also good cardio. You know, I would say Rosa has the edge in that department, just out of what we saw against Sean Woodson. You know, the ability to drown his opponent late with pressure and volume. But will it get to the later rounds? You know, I'm not sure. Julian Rosa, he's the better grappler. His takedown's not fantastic, but neither is Choi's takedown defense. Seungwoo Choi also has the ability to floor this fight. He's shown he's got wrestling ability. But when it comes to BJJ, it's chalk and cheese, man. Rosa is way more dangerous, and Choi won't want this anywhere near the canvas. So it's kind of like that. Do I think that Julian Rosa is disciplined enough to not fall in love with the hands, take Choi down, and, you know, look for a submission where he is going to be more favoured to win this fight and more capable of securing a win? Fuck no. Fuck no do I think Rosa is disciplined enough. Disciplined and Rosa, those 2 words don't belong in the same sentence. Plus, he has had some real success with the hands on the feet in his last 2 fights. You know, he might want to stay up there. He might be getting really confident in the striking realm. What I do think is that Rosa is chinny as hell, and Choi, he hits hard as fuck, and I like his combos. So a tough call to make, but I'm gonna make one. This could go a variety of ways, but me, the Tadpole, I am on a Seungwoo Choi knockout in round 1 at 8.27 times. Rosa, he's been knocked out 4 times in his career. He's been knocked down in 5 of his 8 UFC fights. Choi, 5 knockouts from 9 wins. I like it. I hope I'm not underestimating Julian Rosa. Moving on, Marlon Vera versus Davy Grant. Vera, 1.30 times and $1.34. Davy Grant, 4.30 times and $3.18. I'll be brutally honest, it is hard to see a route for Davy Grant here. He's an awkward guy on the feet. He throws lots of different stuff, very erratic. But Cheeto is the better striker. He's more technical. He also throws a lot of different strikes. He hammers the legs. And he makes just better reads. He's a better striker, you know. Davy Grant is more or less just a guy who enters range really chaotically, you know, hits you with a lot of volume, but just strange, to be honest. I think Vera can light him up at range, you know, break him down, hurt him, and win on the feet, win the striking exchanges at least. Both of these guys are also avid grapplers though, well and truly cemented within their game plans as well. Both fighters typically shoot for takedowns in the first round and make it a theme throughout. And both hit at pretty good percentages as well. Grant, he's a good jiu-jitsu practitioner. He has a really gangly frame. He climbs the back, sets the hooks in, and pretty good at controlling guys when doing so. But as good as he is offensively, he is poor defensively. Whereas Cheeto, this man swings both ways. He's a stud offensively, but then has a solid IQ when defending himself, when it's his turn to guard the neck. And I don't see Davy Grant catching Cheeto slipping, really. And I see this fight ending by way of submission for Marlon Vera at 13.51 times. Davy Grant, he's lost 4 times as a pro and all 4 times via submission. As for a round, I see it being either late first or early second. I'm going to go with the second round sub on verdict, and that is just purely off the back of my thinking that Cheeto is going to have more success on the feet and perhaps not initiate the grappling as much until a little later in the fight. If you are thinking Davy Grant in a dog spot here, the 60 times multiplier for him to notch a sub, that is an enticing play and a great price. That is overs, but I just won't be swinging the bat on his way. I think he's too liable defensively. Again, though, another great spot to bet the under in. So be watching out for that one as we wrap up this video in 10 minutes time. I'll give you a time frame. I reckon it'll be about 10 minutes because we've only got 2 to go. Co-main, Olynyk versus Sergey Spivak. Olynyk 2.07 times and $2.82. Underdog on verdict and the bookies. Sergey Spivak 1.94 times and $1.41. This won't be long. Like almost every Olynyk fight breakdown, it can go one of 2 ways. It does not take a genius to tell you that. Sergey, he'll knock Olynyk out, very likely, or Olynyk will win via submission, which feels just as likely. Olynyk's boxing is shit. His defense is shit. His chin is gone. If he gets hit a couple of times clean, he goes down and just accepts defeat. There's no real dog in him anymore, if there ever was. On the flip side though, Spivak, his takedown defense, not great. And if he gets taken down, it is a wrap. He has no ability off his back, no bottom game, no stand-up ability, doesn't work to the cage. He is not good defensively. He has pretty good BJJ from top, but off his back, it's a fucking shit show, seriously. So, I'm on Olynyk. First round submission at 3 times. And as I headlined in the recap of last week, I had one formula bet on this card, and it's this one. It's Olynyk. Best price, $2.87 moneyline on 365 at the moment. Bet 365, that is. Around a 70% edge here. These light verdict favourites, as Sergey Spivak is at 1.94 times, they win infrequently. And the fact that this is literally a toss-up between 2 ways and you can get $2.87 on one of those ways, being the Olynyk sub, I'm on it. And we'll dive deeper into it on the betting breakdown in 7 minutes time. Await that. Main event, Chansung Jung, the Korean zombie versus Dan Ige. Jung, 1.75 times and $1.90. Ige, 2.33 times and also $1.90. The bookies can't split them. And I can see why, because this is going to be a war. Both guys very similar, both very Very good strikers, very accurate, really technical. Both guys also good submission grapplers. I think Korean Zombie has the better jiu-jitsu, but Ige's the better wrestler, and he incorporates his wrestling more often than Jung. This is difficult in terms of where do I go with this breakdown. You know, we saw a crazy knockout from Ige in his last fight. Sleeping Gavin Tucker like that was ridiculous. Gavin Tucker is a guy I do not take lightly. I think he is very talented. As for that one shot knockout that Dan showed us, I still think that the Korean Zombie packs more power. You know, that was only Dan's 4th knockout finish in his career. Dan, though, he mixes it up way better than Jung does, you know. KZ, he can tend to headhunt. I definitely prefer Ige's ability to mix it up to the body with the hands, mix it up to the legs with his kicks too. This is honestly just such a hard fight to break down. You know, I don't give either guy a really credible fight-altering advantage in any area. So it's hard to find an edge, you know. I'm looking through Korean Zombie. He's been slept 3 times, but I don't think that tells the whole story. I still think he is a really durable guy. He has no quit, you know, and neither does Ige. Ige might have the better conditioning, you know. He has more of a wrestling base, which typically aids cardio, you could say. You know, wrestling, it takes more juice than simply striking. He stayed tough as well in that 4th and 5th round against Calvin Kattar. Still got tagged up and still got pretty convincingly beaten in the 4th and 5th rounds. But the desperation, the will, the volume, it didn't evade him. You know, Calvin Kattar was just better. Dan Ige, he might also have the better IQ, you know. We've seen Korean Zombie, he's had lapses before in his fights. Primarily that primarily the loss to Yayo Rodriguez. Jeez, why does that sound so fucking funny when I say it? Yeah. Right on. Yeah, you know, Jung, he wants to put on a show. We've seen him slip up. Dan, we haven't really seen that from him. You know, he's very composed. He's very disciplined. He stays within himself, fights a game plan, fights very, very smart. That helps him here as well, I think. I think that's an advantage. But man, both guys are going to put the hurt on one another, you know. Maybe Ige can exploit a wrestling edge. He's the better wrestler. You know, maybe he looks better to the judges as well because he just looks busier. Because he does throw to the body and he does throw to the legs more. And that kind of activity just wins him the moments between exchanges, between them coming together. You know, where I think those two are going to be so even when they do come together. So, honestly, I'm kind of at a loss. But I'm going to play a Dan Ige decision at 4.11 times. I just feel like those things that I've mentioned, you know, the wrestling advantage, the cardio, remains to be seen. But from my perspective now, the cardio and the IQ also kind of belong in Ige's corner. I'm going to take him. And this is the only fight on this verdict card that I've actually predicted to need the judges, which is crazy. As for betting aside on this one, you know, they're at a pick'em. It's such a coin flip. I'm not going to be betting this one, but, you know, I just do prefer Dan to take a decision. He has won decisions before. He's gone 6 wins, 3 losses when fights have gone the distance in his career. Whereas Korean Zombie is only 2 wins, 3 losses when fights have gone the distance. So it's a little thing, but yeah. Wild fight, a showcase for the featherweights, and I am incredibly excited for this one. Alright, was that about 10 minutes from the co-main? Because it's bets time. Might have been like 9 minutes. Forgive me. 1 minute early. We have 6 single plays, one of them being the formula bet. But yeah, from first to last, we're actually taking Wellington Turman v Bruno Silva to not enter round 3. So the fight to finish in round 1 or 2, essentially, at $2 over on Ladbrokes. Only 13 of their combined 45 pro fights have entered the third round. So statistically, this is in our favour. Plus their styles, with Bruno being a knockout artist and Wellington being a submission guy. Their styles equal a finish, because they both somewhat have the abilities that the other is susceptible to. So I like the bet. The next bet, the Marlon Vera versus Davy Grant fight, also to not enter the third round. $2.49 on Sportsbet. Only 15 of these two fighters combined 41 pro fights have entered the third round. And 7 of those were decision losses for Cheeto. I don't see him losing this fight, really. I definitely don't see him losing a decision, because Davy Grant's only won 2 of those in his career. I see this being a finish, again, stylistically. And again, the percentages are in our favour, well and truly. I also have another fight, or another bet on this fight, and it is for this fight to end via submission for either guy, at $5.50 on Sportsbet. At $5.50, we're only taking $1 less than simply taking Cheeto for a submission. He's currently $6.50, and I think that $1 reduction warrants the security that it provides if Davy Grant does notch a submission of his own. He is plenty capable. 8 pro wins via submission. Cheeto's obviously never been subbed, and I touched on his defensive ability on the mat, but I am more than happy to take a slightly reduced price for that safety, because it leads me to another single play, my first ever 0.25 unit play on the channel, which is Davy Grant via a round 1 submission at $67 on Ladbrokes. You guys might be confused, because I've said I don't see Davy Grant winning this fight, but if he does, it is likely by submission. He is outmatched in the striking, and you know what? He always shoots for takedowns, and he always shoots for takedowns early, hence the round 1 play. Like I said in the previous single play kind of explanation, he's got 8 submissions in his career, 6 of those in the first round. He's going to be looking to get the grappling going early, like he always does. Plus, I feel like he's going to be getting lit up on the feet. More incentive for him to get the grappling going. So yeah, $67. That is way overs for this guy to get a round 1 submission. So it's a sensitive play. It's not a whole unit. It's 0.25. But the Tadpole, addicted to value. That's why you love me. Next single play, it's the formula. Olynyk at the money line, $2.87 on Bet365. Yeah, like the bet, love the bet. Feel like it should be $1.90, pretty much. So, yeah, hit me with that. And that also kind of corresponds with the last single play on this event. Olynyk via submission in round 1 at $8 on Sportsbet. If he wins, it's likely going to be via a submission, and if it's via submission, it's likely round 1. This guy does not have a gas tank nor the heart to survive into a fight. If this gets out of the first 5 minutes, he gets knocked out by Spivak. Olynyk will look to get the grappling going early and often, as he always does. He needs it on the mat. $8 for the round 1 submission is a very, very good price. Very good price. All right. That's all the single plays. I hope you have heard what you need to from my explanations. But before you go, you want to hear the multi. It's at $19.36 over on Ladbrokes. We've got the Wellington Turman Bruno Silva fight and the Marlon Vera Davy Grant fights to not go the distance. We're taking Alexei Olynyk via submission. And we've got the main event, Dan Ige versus Chan Sung Jung, to enter round 3. Like I said, $19.36 on Ladbrokes. The Turman Silva and Cheeto Grant legs are kind of just extensions from the single players, but with the extra security that they could wrap up in the third round, unlike the single players. Olynyk via submission is incredibly self-explanatory. I need not go into that. And then the Ige Jung fight to enter round 3. We just need them to get through 10 minutes. These boys are durable. They'll be coming prepared for 5-rounders. Both of their, or in their recent history, they've both fought 5-rounders. I think this fight likely goes the distance. So for it to see 10 minutes through, just to bump this price of the multi up to a respectable amount, or to the amount that I typically target, being around 20 to 1, I think it's a good leg. Even though I said I wouldn't bet the fight. Oh, it would be horrible if this was the leg to buckle the multi, but I think it's relatively safe. And I think most of the viewers out there would agree. Alright, that's it. Prediction records, verdict records, betting records for this year, last year, and all time, all in the description, as are my socials. Don't forget to go check them out. If there's any late mail, if I like any lines or props as they release later in fight week, you'll catch them there. If you have any questions about the formula, what I'm doing, feel free to hit me up on the socials or in the comments section. If you're agreeing with what I'm saying, disagreeing, again, comment section, let's hash it out. Aside from that, guys, cheers for tuning in. Catch up.